think it is a reasonably low number. It's obviously below his prop line. 225 seems doable. At least 50 of those yards are going to Xavier Worthy. And this is kind of a volume play. We know that, obviously, with no Rashee Rice, he's been out for a while. And with the up-and-down nature of Travis Kelce, who's ultimately going to get a good share of the targets, who's consistently living between like 6 and 11 targets and should convert on 5-6 catches and get you to 50-plus yards, maybe even with one long shot in there, meaning you get a 20, 30-yard bomb, catch and run, or deep down the field, whatever it may be. I like Worthy to be the recipient of that. So that's 3. On the other side, find me some person this week, please. Just one. One person who hasn't loved Dallas Goedert. Chiefs are terrible against the tight end position. Goddard is going to work today. I'm taking him down to 40. And then Saquon Barkley. Yes, I've bought in. The Chiefs are not that great against the run. See Joe Mixon. See James Cook. See God. Saquon Barkley it's his birthday too. Birthday narrative. 28th on Super Bowl 59. So put it all together, plus 761 on FanDuel. Tom.
Yeah, so we are largely in line, as we have been for the most part of this season. And, right from the jump, Dallas Goedert, as you said, has been awesome for the Eagles to start the postseason. And throughout the regular season, the Chiefs, they allowed the second most total receptions to opposing tight ends and the most receiving yards, obviously putting Goedert in a good spot. I'm also on the Mahomes and quarterbacks producing. Again, we want to take these numbers down, and these are all passing plus rushing. It's not just passing for either one of them. So, again, the offense will be moving for both teams, especially when it comes to Mahomes, and I do like that rushing for him, which we will get into a little bit later. And then Saquon, again, as you said, we're getting the alt rushing. It's not just the rushing plus receiving. It's Saquon alt rushing, as you said. We saw Cook and Mixon both go for 85 and 88 yards in the first 2 games of the postseason. I expect largely of that to continue for Saquon, and we'll go from there. And I think the Hurts-Mahomes should be good for really any type of SGP that you're looking at.
That's plus 264. Scott?
All right. First off, I'm not fat. These guys are thin. All right. So I don't know whose idea it was to get out from underneath the desk, but no more of these stand-up segments, please. Okay. We're going to go Philadelphia based here. 5-legger is going to pay over 10-1. We're going to start with Jalen Hurts. We're going to lower some of his numbers down, all right? We're going to adjust these lines. So you can get him at plus 175. I think he's good for 200. We'll go 175. We'll go Xavier Worthy for Kansas City because he's going to be the main man, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the program. Devontae Smith, same thing. Monster numbers on Devontae Smith against Kansas City. He's been their leading receiver by far. We're going to up his numbers. Then we're going to go over 48.5, which I love. Probably the best bet on the board. And then Philadelphia money line at even money, and it pays a nice 11-12 when I put it in, but over 10-1.
Well, and like you said, to the point of it, because obviously I guess we have a small, medium, large in terms of the way we built these parlays, right? The just south of 3-1, 7.5-1, like you said, almost 11-1 here. Which is the leg that
gets me?
Well, hopefully none of them, but what's the one you're most worried about?
Maybe none of them. Maybe Hurts, but none of them. But maybe the Hurts because Barkley goes off, and I don't think he will. I really don't. But probably that one.
Okay.
Maybe that would be the one.
So
but that's why I lowered it.
We need to remind Scott, free money does not exist.
No.
There are no sure things, but none. I like the confidence. I'm into it. Anything we'll explore. We're going to look at a lot of these guys individually when we get back to the desk as we start to really dive into the quarterback props, the running back props, the receiver props. We'll be back with you here on SportsGrid.
Even the great Nick Saban had to put his team together to do it his way. We know Coach Ryan's coming in to come run the offense, who was his right-hand man, a good friend of his at UW. And, now he's coming in. Everything is going the way we want this thing to be. Coach DeBoer is a great recruiter. He's a great father of players. He's a great leader of men. He's going to do great.
Only on SportsGrid.
But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit?
Yeah.
Secretariat? When you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
Okay, so again, the lead up to Chiefs, Eagles, Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. And guys, I was diving into some of the numbers. Our crew behind the scenes, such a great job digging up a lot of fun stats. Here's one. Only Tom Brady and Joe Burrow have beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts, 0-3 straight up away from home in the playoffs, which averages a 14-point loss in there as well. That's pretty notable. But if we're looking for something, I gave you all these stats earlier, reasons, just trends to back the Chiefs and Mahomes today. If you do, to Tom's point, want to tell yourself that story, I don't personally at all. Makes me sick to my stomach. I'm rooting for Rocky today. How about this one in the opening half? Here's a trend that does support Philadelphia, Scott.
All right.
The Eagles have held the halftime lead in 13 of their last 15 games, dating back to early in the regular season, allowing the third fewest first half points this year as well. This is a team that, it's not that it necessarily starts off super hot. It's more kind of a credit to the defense than it is even the opening half offense. But the Chiefs, there's a reason we talk about them winning these one-score games and how good they are late and coming back in the fourth quarter and yada, yada, yada. They are notorious slow starters. So if you do want to back Philadelphia today, I know all three of us believe in the money line full game, but should we invest in the halftime, the first half money line?
That's not bad. I will say a couple things with that. One, Patrick Mahomes has trailed in the fourth quarter in 9 playoff games. He's won 7, and the other 2 went to overtime. Every time you turn, there's another great a trend or stat to counter a negative one with the other team, right? Here's something, not so much first half, but I would go there, Adam, but know this. Kansas City won the coin toss last 2 years. They deferred.
Yes.
So FanDuel and all the likes, they offer a lot of who's going to get the first 10 yards, first 20 yards, who's going to score first, that sort of thing. I would lean towards Philadelphia because there's a pretty good chance that Philadelphia is going to get that ball first. I will tell you, Philadelphia has scored a touchdown 7 straight times. They've had the opening touchdown. So, just first half, first quarter, first 10, first 20 yards, stuff like that, Tom. I think Philadelphia is the angle to go with.
I would largely agree with that. The point that I made throughout the week about this game is, I'm not in love with the total, and I actually anticipated it being, jumping up to 50 at one point, but ultimately I think this game is going to start off slow. And, I'm in line with what we should be expecting in terms of a 1.5, call it 2-score type of game if the Eagles were to win. And I've routinely said that I am waiting for a live over. So I'm fine with a first half under because that's why I'm anticipating these teams playing it very scripted, very close to the vest. They're going to start off slow, and then we will see a little bit of scoring pickup, whether it be a third quarter from the Eagles because we know that they can score and the Chiefs don't, and then the Mahomes has the ball late in his hands in the fourth quarter, and they do put up some points. So a live over is ultimately where I'll be looking to go, but I would lean on that first half under because, again, some solid defenses, teams playing things super close to the vest, and that's where we'll start off.
You just sort of made me think about this. In the spirit of in-game betting, and we're going to be followed, by Joe Ranieri, Mike Blewett. They're going to be with you for in-game live, the big game throughout the actual contest. Obviously we've got you pre-game, post-game, halftime in between, but they'll be on with you during the game. And I imagine this is something that they will explore. It's worth thinking about. In a word, let's start with this. Just in a word, yes or no. Do you expect this to be, Tom, a back-and-forth game?
No.
Okay. Scott?
Yeah, no.
Okay, well, if then I screw my point, I guess, because here's what I was going to bring up, guys. If your answer was yes, for anyone out there that does believe that this is going to be a little back and forth, meaning, I don't know, Philadelphia jumps out to a 7-0 lead, and at some point in time, Kansas City holds a lead, and then we see that type of thing. That not a shootout necessarily, just back and forth, as opposed to one side from Jump Street. From a live perspective, could we justify just trying to look for both teams' money lines at plus money and then just sit back and watch the game, knowing we're going to profit no matter what happens? Pregame, you can't really do that because Philadelphia is even money. Right. But if you want to wait, this game starts up, Scott, and Philadelphia gets on the board first. Cool, you're getting KC at plus money. Kansas City comes back, ties it, takes a 10-7 lead. All right, now I've got Philadelphia at plus money, and then you can just sit back, relax, have a drink, enjoy the game, and know you're going to come out ahead,
right,
at some amount.
Yes.
Is it a good in-game strategy?
Yeah, it's not bad. But I would do it, guys, to start the game. Like I said, with Kansas City deferring the last two Super Bowls, and I don't know about the Philadelphia, if they were to win, would they defer? So I really should look that up. But I'm going to assume Philadelphia's going to get the ball. As I mentioned, they've scored first in 7 straight games. So if I take Philadelphia now at even, then, yeah, there's a pretty good chance that they might score, and now I can get Kansas City. I don't know how much it's really going to fluctuate, though. This is not a regular season game. I'm thinking if Philadelphia, it's pick 'em, right? So if Philadelphia were to score a touchdown, what would they be favored? Minus 150, 160, and then you get, 120, 130 maybe if you're lucky on the other side?
Minus 2.5 on the spread. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're going to have that ability to be able to really kind of go back and forth like that, just because I don't think they're going to, I think the boys in Vegas think this is going to go back and forth. We may not, Adam,
right,
but I think the boys in Vegas do, and I'd be surprised, unless it was a double-digit lead, if you really got like plus 150, 160, 170 on the money line with a team.
I would largely agree with that. It also depends on what you have invested in this game to start, right? If you're on a side, you have a future. I know a lot of people out there they're still sitting on direct outcomes. Philly to beat Kansas City, Kansas City to beat Philly. So, at what point we talked about earlier today, like you're going to be eating into potential other profit. What other player props that you have involved that you're going to be losing out on money just because you're investing in something that's kind of counterintuitive to what you already want to happen. Mm-hmm. So, it's person to person. Do you just want to have more action out there, Adam? You always like to say that you are a bit of a volume bettor.
Yes.
Just getting a lot of action out there, and then, whatever the chips may fall, if you're at the end of the day, you're net positive, that's all that matters.
Right.
I would say, again, what you have out there pre-game should determine how you bet things in-game.
I think over-under, you might be able to get a better middle or,
right,
go high, go low situation versus the actual point spread. I think we're going to get some points right away. I mean, I know generally thinking, you go conservative. It's the Super Bowl, little nerves, this, that, what have you, right? But you're talking about 2 veteran teams, 2 teams that have been here before. That was 38-35. They're going to value every single possession.
That's why I like the live over. If it starts off slow. And
right,
then
you're hoping it starts off slow.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You need like the punt prop is only 6.5. I was all set to play the under, right? And then it was like 6.5. Like, oh man, that's not that many punts. It really is. And I was hoping it would be like 8.5. So I just think both teams, whoever ends up getting the ball, both first possession, they're going to come out flying. And what do you mean by that? I mean by you run the ball to Barkley on first down, he gets 2 yards at 2nd and 8. I don't think they screw around and run the ball again. I think they throw the ball. Regular season, yep, they run the ball again. You want to go conservative, get the nerves and everything out of your system. Yeah, you run the ball again, and then maybe you get a 3rd and 6, and then you got to punt the ball. I don't think teams are going to risk today just kind of throwing away a possession. So I think you could get a score early on.
Tom, we've seen so far here in this postseason, obviously the Chiefs with their opening round bye had to ultimately start off this thing by going through the Texans and the Bills. The Eagles obviously have played all the way throughout, and so Packers, Rams, Commanders. Any previous matchups that you think we can take anything from those games into this one?
You know, it might be what we saw versus the Rams and how the Eagles operated their offense. That's something we can dig into, and we're going to get into head-to-heads as we go through, coming up against the break soon. We're going to get into that, what we see from them, and you know, at a player level, I mean, this Rams game, it was so condensed of what we saw from their offense from the Eagles.
And the weather issue.
And the weather was obviously a factor as well, but I would say that game largely just leaning on Barkley time and time again.
A Super Bowl where A.J. Brown will be sitting on the sidelines reading a book. If we're thinking back to the Rams game, then goodness gracious. As Tom mentioned, head-to-heads on the way. Get into some player comparisons, expectations for their prop market. Who's going to be good? Who do we fade? We'll see on the other side.
Even the great Nick Saban had to put his team together to do it his way. We know Coach Ryan's coming in to come run the offense, who was his right-hand man, a good friend of his at UW. And, now he's coming in. Everything is going the way we want this thing to be. Coach DeBoer is a great recruiter. He's a great father of players. He's a great leader of men. He's going to do great.
Only on SportsGrid.
But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
Two years ago, folks, a high-scoring affair, 38-35, won basically at the buzzer by Kansas City. Harrison Butker, just a hero of the nation at that point in time. How the mighty have fallen. Mahomes, 182 passing yards, 3 TDs in that game, 44 rushing yards despite, guys, the banged-up ankle, which you may remember. He comes into this one obviously healthy, whereas Hurts went crazy. 304 passing, a touchdown, ran for 70, 3 more on the ground. Tush pushes galore. Scott, let's start with you. How do we handicap what to expect from the QBs here?
All right, I love the over on Jalen. I'm going to use him. I think he's going to be the guy, not Saquon Barkley. If you look at the numbers, when the teams put 8 men in the box, his numbers are less than 4 yards a carry, which is not awful, but versus teams that go 5 or 6 or 7 men in the box, and he averages over 6 yards a carry. So there's no way that they're going to be able to do that. Kansas City's allowed only one rusher this year, and he really wasn't even a rusher, Lamar Jackson, to run for 100 yards. I don't think he's going to get 100. I would not be playing Saquon Barkley props. I think they're going to do just as good a job against him as they've done against everybody else, and that opens the door for Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to get touchdowns. They got a prop there, 1.5, a little juicy, minus 160, but Jalen Hurts touchdown passes and runs over 1.5. Love that. I really do for laying a $160. I think he's going to be the guy, and I think if Philadelphia wins, he's going to be the MVP.
All right. As for me, for the quarterbacks, almost 2 weeks ago, to the exact hour, I was on the recap show after the Chiefs beat the Bills, talking about, various player props as they were being posted, reacting to them in live time. And, one of my favorites at the time, and still is Mahomes over 35.5 passing attempts. And that number moved up to 36, as I said it would on the show. And despite the fact that Mahomes has not gone over that number in the first 2 playoff games, he went over that number 9 of the last 10 regular season games. This is the point of the season where rubber meets the road. And obviously, and I say that because the Chiefs' expectations are so high year in and year out. Looking back at what they have done or lack thereof in terms of the running game, Pacheco and Hunt haven't been great. And when we see 17 rushing attempts from Kareem Hunt against the Bills, he was still under 4 yards per carry. They're just not getting it done on the ground, and the ball will be in Mahomes' hands when it's all said and done. And whether or not they win or they lose, the yards, the touchdowns, interceptions, I don't care about the completions. I care about the attempts because he will be throwing the ball when it's all said and done. You're not going to take the ball out of his hands if you're not just going for a three-peat, but at any point in the season, especially in the Super Bowl.
You would wonder, I guess, if on the other side with the Eagles and the running back position in particular, let's talk about that breakdown because, again, it's one clear guy, Kenneth Gainwell. No, it's Saquon Barkley. And then at this point, I mean, it's Kareem Hunt, right? Like Isaiah Pacheco has been, Wally Pipped. He's been leapfrogged. He's honestly, if you look back to 2 years ago, basically, what we're seeing out of Isaiah Pacheco now is what we were seeing out of CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire then. Pacheco in the Super Bowl went for 70-plus on the ground. He was solid, scored a touchdown, but he's just not getting utilized in the same way that he would. Now it's Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's getting the attempts. He had 17 against the Bills. His total for attempts in that game, guys, was 9. Yeah. He had 8 at the break before finishing, obviously, with the 17. You could still get him in a discount, it feels like, today. It just comes down to what is the impact going to be on the ground for Kansas City? And I don't mean Mahomes scrambling. I mean specifically those backs because the Eagles' rush defense is pretty good. We all know Saquon. But what's it look like first on the KC side? Tom?
Again, on that same recap show that I was doing 2 Sundays ago, I said very adamantly the same things. I like Pacheco under 6.5 rushing attempts. And that number has moved down to 5.5 because, again, he's not being utilized. He's not being effective. Dating back to the regular season, he didn't see the high volume. It was Kareem Hunt. I also personally believe that he's just not at 100%.
Yeah.
Coming off of, the broken leg earlier in the season, he did come back, and he was okay, but he wasn't the same explosive running back that he was. So, again, it leaned me to under 6.5 rushing attempts, and that number has moved to 5.5. So I am on board with the fact that, I don't think the Chiefs will run the ball effectively. If they do, it will be Kareem Hunt, and then it's going to be Mahomes. It's not going to be an Isaiah Pacheco game.
Yeah. I tend to agree, and I had his over 36.5 against Buffalo. He fell woefully short, right? So, but I'm counting on Philadelphia to score a little bit more. They have the lead and kind of force the issue a little bit with Mahomes and not kind of screw around with Hunt and the lousy average that he had last week. I don't think he gets 17 carries. I don't think he comes close to that. So I agree with you, Tom. He's hit that number. I looked it up. He has hit that number in about 4/5 of all his playoff games. Unfortunately, 2 of them were this year. So it's kind of, it makes you scratch your head a little bit, right? So, but, it's funny. Some games, there's a gazillion plays, and then other games, it's not. If Philadelphia runs the ball, and again, it goes back to Kansas City's defense, believe it or not. I don't think Philadelphia's going to be able to run the ball against that Kansas City defense, which means they're going to throw the ball, which means you're going to get some incompletions. You're going to get a bunch of timeouts, your clock stoppages. If they run the ball, then you're limiting how many possessions Kansas City has. So it's really kind of up to Kansas City's, as believe it or not, defense to determine how often they're going to be throwing the ball. But 37, you need a little break. You need Kansas City to get the ball with 2.5 minutes left. This way they get 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 cheap passes on a 2-minute drill. You need stuff like that for 36.5, but I would go over 2.
We may have to carry this conversation over into the next segment because how can you limit Saquon Barkley into 90 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. But listen, this dude has just been nuclear. Offensive Player of the Year, just awarded the NFL honors, as we know. I don't know if he's going to break off a 60-yard touchdown run from scrimmage on his first play. I wouldn't sit here and tell you he's not going to, though. What I will tell you is surprising to me, we have seen his rushing prop bet down.
Yes.
It was 112.5, and I got on the over because I thought it might get to 120. Instead, people have taken it the other way. You can get it at 109.5 now if you want to go over. I remind you, 118 last time against the Commanders. Yes, 60 of those on one play. 205 against the Rams. Yes, 78 of those on one play. Against the Packers in the playoffs, 119, 167 in the last regular season game he played, 150 in that Commanders contest in mid-December just before Christmas. Have I mentioned it's his birthday? Today's his birthday, guys. I don't care if you don't care about narratives. I do, and that's a good one. Playing in the Super Bowl when you are the featured weapon on your birthday, smash the overs. That's how I feel. How do these guys feel? We'll find out when we come on back.
Even the great Nick Saban had to put his team together to do it his way. We know Coach Ryan's coming in to come run the offense, who was his right-hand man, a good friend of his at UW. And, now he's coming in. Everything is going the way we want this thing to be. Coach DeBoer is a great recruiter. He's a great father of players. He's a great leader of men. He's going to do great.
Only on SportsGrid.
But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
All right, so my plan was to continue the Saquon Barkley conversation, how we should feel about his props, and then I was told to, pun intended, I guess, run all over here, back to the wall, and get into some best bets. Is Saquon going to be a factor there? Maybe. I don't know. That's the beauty of not sneaking a peek behind the curtain at what both Tommy and Scott have planned for you. We started before with Scott. No, actually, we started with you with the same game parlays. Let's start with you this time, Scott. What are your favorite plays in this one?
All right, I got four. I'm going to go two Kansas City, two basically Philadelphia. I'm going to go Xavier Worthy. I think he's going to be the man. 3 times against Philadelphia, he had monster numbers. He's the one that they can throw to. He leads Kansas City in all receiving categories, whether it's attempts, whether it's routes run, design plays for him, yards after catch, the whole kit and caboodle. He's really the guy. So I'm going to go over 54.5 yards. That's a straight bet. FanDuel also offers you, will he get 25 yards in each half at plus 250? Yeah, 25 yard. But he could get that on one catch. I'm not worried about the first or the second half. The first half, maybe a little bit, but I think that's a pretty good play. Then we're going to go Jalen Hurts. I gave it before. Over 1.5 touchdown receptions passes and runs. 1.5. I mean, it's minus 160. And we like to do these props where you're getting a whole big odds, but I'm going to do it because I think he's going to get 2, even if it's throwing. And then the last one they offer is how many Philadelphia Eagles will score a touchdown. All right, we got Barkley, we got Hurts. We only need one more. It's 2.5 plus 145. I think they're putting 30 points on the board. I don't think Barkley's getting 5 touchdowns. I don't think Hurts is getting 5 touchdowns. I'm pretty confident 3 different Philadelphia Eagles are going to score TDs, and we're getting plus 145 odds.
Yeah, so let's jump into mine. I already spoke about Mahomes over 35.5 passing attempts, Pacheco under 6.5 rushing attempts. Want to get into Devonta Smith over 4.5 receptions. That's a spot that I really like. Regardless of, we may have our different opinions on whether Saquon will actually have a good game, the Eagles are going to make an effort to get him the ball, and the Chiefs obviously have to do whatever they can to stop that. And as I noted when we were up here for the SGP segment, is that the Chiefs have been specifically bad against opposing tight ends, allowing the second most receptions, most receiving yards throughout the regular season. We also have this deep ball threat with A.J. Brown on the outside, leaving some room in the middle and underneath for Devonta Smith to have a big game. So you liked him at, 60-plus in the SGP?
Right.
I think Smith's going to have – I think he's in for a big game. I do like Goddard as well, pile up the yards over the middle.
Does supporting Smith, and I guess to both of you, I'll start with you, Tom, does supporting Smith mean fading Brown ultimately?
They can coexist if you think they're going to drop 30 points. It depends on, again, how much exposure you want to one side of things. A.J. Brown is a player that we've seen, again, have a very wide range of outcomes in the playoffs alone, going for one catch for 10 yards. He had a solid last game. He's somewhere in between. I think he can get there on 1 or 2 catches, but I actually like the volume perspective from Devonta Smith coming in the middle, especially if we do see the Eagles fall behind at any point. Karlaftis-Jones bringing that pressure. Hurts is going to have to get the ball out quickly, moving into Devonta Smith for some easy completions, pick up first downs, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I agree. I would play him a little bit, but I wouldn't go crazy. Those 2 games where he had 2 receptions for 24 yards, the first 2 playoff games, I know he was great last game, but something's weird going on, so I would just as soon stay away.
Well, a lot of drops, obviously, as well in the weather game. Whether, in fact, you want to blame that on the weather or just say that he was off in that game. Again, that's the one where, he turned a book that he really likes into a bestseller overnight on the Amazon list. That's the impact that these guys have, obviously. So I guess sort of building off of that, we were talking about the QB comparison before. You just mentioned, you really like Mahomes' rushing props. So that's, if you're looking into rushing at all on the Kansas City side.
Yeah.
It's the Mahomes scrambling ability, and that's it.
Yeah, it would be Mahomes scrambling plus the Pacheco under. I don't think he's fully healthy. I just don't think they roll overall.
Right.
It's really that simple.
They offer a prop on FanDuel anyway. Total rushing yards for the game, 283.5. That's a lot of yards. Barkley could go for 100. Hurts could go for 40, 50. Mahomes could go for 40, 50, and you're still almost 100 yards shy of 283.5.
Right.
I that's one of my better plays as well, under 283.5.
Okay.
Yeah, Saquon at that point in time, he's your X factor. I mean, let's pick it up right now. And we're not sitting at the desk. Who cares? Let's talk about it, Scott. Are you fading Barkley?
I am. I told you about only one runner, and that's, the quarterback, Lamar Jackson, went for 100 yards against Kansas City this year. How about this? Greatest sports axiom of all time, right? Winners bet with streaks, losers bet against streaks. You know how many games Kansas City has played in the postseason without allowing a 100-yard rusher? How about 5? How about 10? How about 15? How about 18 straight games? No, I'm fading Barkley.
Okay, might need to look at my notes and revisit some of my pre-show bets on Saquon Barkley. No, today's the day. It's his birthday. I believe
it
in
is
these
birthday.
things. Birthday narrative. It trumps all other trends and historical data. We'll talk to you on the other side. We got to get the pass catchers.
Even the great Nick Saban had to put his team together to do it his way. We know Coach Ryan's coming in to come run the offense, who was his right-hand man, a good friend of his at UW. And, now he's coming in. Everything is going the way we want this thing to be. Coach DeBoer is a great recruiter. He's a great father of players. He's a great leader of men. He's going to do great.
Only on SportsGrid.
But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
Earlier about how many times can we mention Taylor Swift, obviously, and what their novelty props on how many times is she going to be shown on camera during the game, and will she join Kendrick Lamar on stage to perform Bad Blood, and all these different things. But I think what really matters is the performance of her boyfriend in this game today, Travis Kelce. Let's talk about the tight ends, guys. You can see the graphic there on the screen of what these totals are looking at. We were talking about A.J. Brown being kind of boom or bust here in the playoffs. The book reaction to Travis Kelce has been rather incredible. You see him finish the regular season with an 84-yard game. Opens the playoffs after the first-round bye against the Texans with his prop sitting right at 50, okay? Right at 50, 49.5. Goes for 117. Book goes crazy with the overreaction, takes him all the way up to, I believe, 68, 69.5 against the Bills, and he just flirts with a milk carton in that one. Goes 2 for 4 for 19 yards, and then you see it swing back the other way, obviously, to where it is now mid-60s, but I mean, we saw it at one point in time. That's because it's been bet up by the public, maybe by those Swifties. We saw it much earlier at 60.5, 61.5, nowhere near as high as it is right now. He's playing coy about his future as to whether, Tom, this is the last game of his career, or if he's coming back next year or what have you. But one game, winner take all, legacy kind of statement at stake here. Going for the first three-peat ever, looking to become, in many people's eyes, the best tight end ever.
Right.
What are we expecting in terms of the performance today?
I think there's been an overreaction in the market where the line opened up at 65, 66, like you said. It's down to 59 live right now. And again, as I mentioned with the Mahomes segment, rubber meets the road. Like, it's time to put up or shut up, essentially. That's what I think we should be seeing from Kelce. So despite the fact that the numbers dropped and probably a lot of people were sharp early bettors were on that under, getting under 66, whatever it might have been. Getting to the point where you have a chance to take over 59, I think that would be the side to go with. If you don't have anything invested in it all, I would not play the 6.5 receptions. That seems a bit much. 5 for 70 yards and a touchdown, 6 for 70 yards and a touchdown. That I can buy into. But him having 8, 9 catches, there's a possibility that happens. But at that point, we're probably looking at an over in just the game overall. It's just there's a far easier route to just have a profitable bet than taking one specific player prop.
Yeah, I much prefer taking the yardage over I do the receptions because you said it, Tom. That you can make many cases where he can get the yards but not get 7 receptions. That's a lot of receptions.
Yeah.
But could he get 7 receptions?
6 for 81 when they matched up last time.
Yeah, there you go. Could you get 7 receptions since his number is 6.5 and not go over his yardage total? It would be tough. I mean, you could, but I think there's a much better chance of him going under the reception total, but over the yardage total. And again, it goes back to, with Philadelphia maybe getting the ball first, would they really lower the numbers? Yeah, if Philadelphia ran off a 6, 7, 8, minute drive, they would. So you might want to hold off on betting some of these Kansas City props because they will lower these numbers, and they really do fluctuate quite a bit with time going off the clock.
I think there are 2 things that I've heard more than anything else throughout the last couple of weeks. One was, how could you invest your money against Patrick Mahomes? The other one is just how bad the Chiefs' defense is against tight ends. Everybody, Scott, everybody loves Dallas Goedert. Are you biting, though? Because you can go over 48.5. It is a modest line.
Well, that's the thing, right? You could have that thinking and be all set. All right, let's go under, and then you see it's 50 yards, and not even. And it's like, wow, how could you go under 50 yards for Dallas Goedert? I mean, he hit his total in playoff games. It's 7 or 8. I got the stat here in front of me. He's been just an absolute over machine when it comes to the postseason. So, it is a public thing, and the stat is like a goofy yardage per reception per air weather quality. It's not like total tight end yards. It's something goofy that Kansas City gives up, right? So that said, I would go Goedert. I think he's going to have a big. To me, Goedert and Smith. I'm staying away from A.J. Brown. I'm going Goedert and Smith for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I would largely agree with that. We spoke about the SGP segment. I like Goedert to go 40 plus. Obviously, that's not what his prop is exactly at. I would take there. I like Smith as well. It comes down to, as you said, you are pretty adamant that we're not going to be seeing a massive game out of Barkley. And if that's not the case, the yards have to be going somewhere. And I do think the middle of the field will be open for Goedert and Smith. And maybe a little bit of Barkley out of the backfield, which is not something we've really talked about, catching passes out of the backfield. But Goedert, siding with Goedert, I think is an easy route to take in this game.
9 straight playoff games. He's hit his over prop. There it is. Over in the receptions prop, 9 straight for Goedert. So, kind of hard to say no to that.
Since you just brought it up, Tom, let's pick it up there, sort of circling back to Saquon Barkley, but as a pass catcher.
Right.
If we're sort of on the fence about Brown, I know you guys certainly believe in Smith. If we want to join the chorus of those betting publicly in believing in Goedert, there's only so many yards to go around unless this game does go crazy, exploding past the total and all of that stuff. But when it comes to Barkley, it's always rushing. But what is his impact going to be as a pass catcher?
I think it would be modest, and it comes down to what happens in the game script. Because if things go according to plan for the Eagles, he may only see 1, maybe 2 catches out of the backfield, right? And if they're ahead, he's going to be running the ball, and he's going to be pushing towards that 23.5 rushing attempt number, I believe it is for him. And if things go poorly, this is where Hurts is going to be forced into a passing narrative, and Barkley's, just because of the pressure the Chiefs can bring, Barkley's going to have to catch passes out of the backfield. So it really comes down to, again, what story are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself that the Chiefs are going to get up by 10 points and thus they have to pass the ball? Or are the Eagles going to be in control the whole time and Barkley won't play a role in the pass game? It could be 1 catch for him. That's a very realistic outcome today. They win the game, he has 1 catch, and he has 100 yards on the ground.
If you believe in the MO, as I do, that Kansas City is going to stop the run, well, you can't keep on running the ball to Barkley. I don't care how good he is, right? He's not Jim Brown here. So how, though, do you get in the football? You throw in the ball. So it's funny, Tom and Adam. It's all kind of based on whatever you think is going to happen in the game. There's like 50 zillion different ways you could bet it, but it's all based on your predicate of, okay, I think Kansas City is going to stop Barkley running. So they're going to get him the ball somehow, some way, and that's throwing it to him, maybe screens, whatever the case may be. So he'll go over his receiving props. So it's all, figure out what way you think the game is going to go, and that's how you kind of bet it. But I think Casey's going to do a good job against him.
I mentioned all those Eagles before. I like Xavier Worthy a lot in this one. I know that we're generally in agreement on that. But then you have just these less heralded guys that we have not really spoken about. Marquise Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, DeAndre Hopkins, Noah Gray, if you want to include him in there, all obviously on the KC side. Tom, anyone have your attention there, just in the spirit of Someone's getting the yards that Mahomes is throwing.
Right. I earlier in the week on the early line, I spoke about DeAndre Hopkins specifically for a touchdown. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to have a massive game with 50 yards and 5-6 catches, but I do like him for a touchdown today, which are some big odds up at plus 550 thereabouts. But him having a limited role in the passing game in terms of yardage, I think is a realistic outcome. Could we see a Justin Watson or Noah Gray, Juju Smith-Schuster to step up and play some type of secondary, tertiary role in their offense? Again, that's the kind of big mystery of what we're going to be getting out of Kansas City on offense today.
How about Justin Watson? 1 yard, basically one catch, plus 250 on FanDuel. They have a bunch of guys listed on who's going to get one receiving yard. He's one of them. It's like, all right, the way Patrick Mahomes throws the ball all over the place, he likes to spread it around. Why not?
Tom and I have had this conversation many times before. Do you just invest in all of them, not thinking you're going to hit them all, obviously, but if 3 out of 5 go over, you profit.
Yep.
Something to consider. We'll be back.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Eagles-Chiefs rapidly approaching Super Bowl 59. Don't forget, in-game live for the big game. We'll be here with you, Joe Ranieri and Mike Blewett right in studio. We have complete coverage for you here on SportsGrid over the course of the next several hours, halftime, post-game, everything in between. Do not miss out. Hopefully we can make you some money and ourselves, quite frankly, some money along the way. But, you know, it's funny. I did so many shows over the course of the NFL season with both of these guys. And, Scott, we did shows with Joe Madden every Sunday, in-game live, Pro Football Today, looking at, you know, usually a 4 or 5 game slate, whatever it may have been, and constantly Joe is going on and on about this guy to have a sack or defensive touchdown or overtimes or but these are some of the kind of fun, goofy, creative, sometimes very profitable ways to attack this game. Obviously, a Philly defensive touchdown, and I'm talking anytime touchdown, not like first touchdown, plus 650. Kansas City plus 750. You can go player by player if you want to invest in this guy to have a sack, that guy to have a sack. Any fun, goofy, outside the box ways that you're betting this game?
Yeah, I got a few here. This one is going to be a hedge a little bit from the Jalen Hurts success that I think he's going to have today. Kareem Hunt, who's had a touchdown in 6 straight playoff games. Saquon Barkley and Xavier Worthy, who I think is going to have a big game. 4 touchdowns combined, plus 750. That's not bad. Last play of the game to be a kneel down. You got to lay a little juice, minus 160. But if it's not going to be a close game, heck, it could be a close game. You'd be surprised how many games end with the quarterback doing a kneel down. It's not often that you have a Hail Mary or a field goal at the end. So minus 160 to me, that's worth a bet. How about both teams to have a successful fourth down conversion? I'm going to go no, believe it or not, minus 102.
Interesting.
Yeah, you need both. Listen, you need 2 things to have happen, right? You need to have them go for the fourth down, and you need to be successful on it, which is not a guarantee for both teams. So I'll take my chances. And then 2 more here. Will both teams have the lead in the first half? I'm going to go yes at plus 132, maybe a field goal to start the game, touchdown. I think you'll get that. I think that's at plus 132. I'll take it. And then last one, total yardage of all touchdowns. This is also going to be kind of a hedge a little bit here. But I'm going to go under 75.5 yards, even though I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. But think about that. You could get 7 touchdowns, right? The over-under is 48.5, so that's 7 touchdowns. That's 10 yards a touchdown. Barkley's not running for 60 yards for a touchdown, not against that Kansas City defense. So 75.5 doesn't seem like a lot, but you know what? You're going to need a 30-yard or so touchdown run, pass. I don't think you're going to get it, so I'm going to go under 75.5 yards total touchdown yardage.
Yeah, some longer bets that I've spoken about throughout the week. I like DeAndre Hopkins, as I just mentioned, to score a touchdown. I don't know if he plays a massive role in the game overall, but certainly expecting him to find the end zone. Veteran receiver for Mahomes. They brought him in for a reason, et cetera, et cetera. I do like Dallas Goedert to score a touchdown as well, as I've spoken about before. And earlier this week, or last week, whenever it was, that I was on the early line talking about a non-quarterback to have a passing touchdown, a little bit of a Philly special 2.0, which was up at 28-1, I believe. It's at 17 or 18-1 now, but a little bit of a trick play coming out of either of these teams once they get to the red zone. Wouldn't be that much of a surprise. Again, Philly special 2.0.
Have you invested, either of you, in the novelty market at all?
The Taylor Swift or the coin toss? I will tell you.
Anything. I mean, anything available. Not everything is available to you stateside,
right.
Obviously, on these, some you need to get creative with offshore betting, I suppose. But you can bet legally in some states on the coin toss or on some of these Taylor Swift props. So, yeah.
Yeah, a coin toss, it's been 8 and 7. 8 heads, 7 tails, last 15. So if you're thinking, that there's some kind of goofy trend, no, it really isn't.
It is as 50-50 a bet really as you could possibly make.
I mean, it really is, right?
Yeah.
But you have to do it. It's there. It's one of those things. It's kind of like, pick 2 of the worst college football teams. UTEP versus New Mexico State. It's on the board. It's a bailout special, so we got to bet it because if they're going to play it, we're going to bet it. Same thing with the coin toss. Even if it's $1, you could be a $100 player. You got to do it because it's just, if they're willing to put it up, we should oblige and bet it. I'll bet tails.
Okay. I don't have a play on the coin toss. It's just not the way I go about things. Again,
you can't correlate it to anything, is what you're saying?
Maybe I jump in between now and kickoff as we're quickly approaching that before we throw it to in-game live. Maybe I jump in on something just because we're all going to be on the same side of something. That I'm not opposed to, but as of now, I have nothing. The long shot I'm going to say, again, is that non-quarterback to throw a touchdown.
How about long shot MVP market?
Zach Bond.
Yeah, give me one of Philadelphia's defensive backs. A couple of interceptions.
Game-changing plays.
Yeah,
would have to swing the momentum. That's why I've always made the case for Jalen Carter or George Karlaftis on the Chiefs side. It has to be a sack, forced fumble, multiple sacks kind of thing.
Yeah. It's
a friend of mine invested in, I hope I'm saying this dude's name correct, Nico Rahimio, right? The returner.
Yeah.
Invested in him just to score like anytime touchdown at great odds because it's like he doesn't have one yet, but he looks like he's ready to break one off kind of thing. If you want to invest in a dude like that, I'm looking at the odds right now, 600 to 1. And before you out there say, all right, Kaufman, like let's settle down. Let's relax a little bit. It's what are the odds? Well, I'll tell you, 1 in 58 is that's what it is, because we have one time in Super Bowl history seen a punter, Desmond Howard against my Patriots, win Super Bowl MVP. So it is not unprecedented. In fact, a tight end winning the award is. A tight end has never won Super Bowl MVP. Right. Take that, Travis Kelce. So you could try and make some history today on your way out the door, but it may not happen. May not happen.
How about this? Patrick Mahomes, oddly enough, wore Philadelphia green to the game. So, little weird. How about the primary color of Taylor Swift's top? Red is minus 250. I mean, is she going to wear anything outside of Kansas City red? I mean, who wants to lay minus 250 on a bet, right? But what's she going to do? Wear green? You know, white again?
Can't see it.
Got to be red. Lay the 250. Put it in a parlay if they allow it.
For anyone that cares, by the way, Chiefs will wear white in the Super Bowl. Believe it or not, there are trends for everything. In Super Bowl history, the winner has worn white in 37 of 58 games, 64%, including 16 of the last 20. If that is going to convince you to bet the Chiefs, go right ahead.
There you go.
All right.
Not enough for me. All right. We're just getting started. That's pregame. We're going to be back for halftime. So if you want to watch us as opposed to Kendrick Lamar, we're here for you. We got your postgame as well. But in-game live, Joe Ranieri, Mike Blewett next.
It's finally here. The big game is just days away, and SportsGrid is live from New Orleans all week long, bringing you the latest news, insights, and analysis from the biggest names in the game. And on game day, we've got you covered all day long with expert picks, live odds, and everything you need to make the most out of the biggest game of the year.
They beat South Carolina, they're going to 10-1. So if you're on this, if you're TCU trained, listen, Mark and Chavi have done the job, but I may be the spokesman for TCU women's basketball because I believe in these guys and I know what they can do. If they beat South Carolina, they're going to be 10-1 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't need to.
Let's talk about Philly and Kansas City. They're here again. It's one of the last 3 years. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'm a big Andy Reid fan, and it's hard to go against what he's been able to accomplish. Okay. That being said, there's a lot of storylines in this game. You know, you look at Saquon and what he's been able to do this year.
Crazy.
It's wild. But if he's able to do what he's done throughout the playoffs, they'll be hard to beat.
Only on SportsGrid.
And we are live on the In-Game Live. It's the Pro Football Championship version of this show. We've been here with you each and every week on SportsGrid. Mike Blewett along with Joe Ranieri. Excited to get through all of the action today between the Chiefs and the Eagles. It's the game we've been talking about for 2 weeks. It's the game that we've discussed nearly every minute on this program. From New Orleans to our studio here in New Jersey, we're excited to be here with you for the next few hours. It's the Kansas City Chiefs attempting to become the first team ever to three-peat in a Super Bowl. This Super Bowl marks the 9th Super Bowl rematch ever and the second time to have two teams meet in the Super Bowl twice in a 3-season span. Not since Dallas and the Bills in the 90s have we had two teams rematch so close together. Joe Rainieri, obviously we've talked about this game quite a bit on various shows over the course of the past couple of weeks, but with Chiefs head coach Andy Reid and Nick Sirianni having faced off against each other so recently in such a big game, how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not necessarily the game that we all thought we might get here, especially those that had Buffalo a couple of weeks ago. Thanks so much for that, Buffalo, once again. But here we are, right? A repeat, only the second time, Mike, I think, in the history of the Super Bowl era that we actually have not one but two teams battling each other for the championship within a 3-year span. So the last team to do that was the Cowboys and the Bills back in the 90s, and that didn't work out all that well for the Buffalo Bills. It usually doesn't. But I do think you have a Jalen Hurts, much more experienced now. You have a weapon now with Philadelphia that you didn't have a couple of years ago, and that's Saquon Barkley. And I do think that Nick Sirianni, I think the addition of Vic Fangio, I think when you put it all together, this is a team poised, not the best Kansas City Chiefs team we've seen in this game. And I do think Philadelphia is going to have learned from their failure a couple of years ago, and I think they have exactly what it takes. Styles make fights, Mike, and I'm sorry, but this Philadelphia style is not great for Kansas City.
So -1.5 has been the spread since it opened. We are still at the total being 48.5. We have team totals both at 24.5 and the first half line -1.5 for the Chiefs. This is you can obviously look at different sports books to gain different stats on this, but the handle, the money, about 50-50, Philly to Kansas City. 52% of the spread bets are on Philly. Underdogs have covered in the last 13 of the last 17 games, Joe. That's the Eagles today, obviously. The team with a better regular season record, 2-19-1 against the number in the last 22 years. The under is hitting the last 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, actually, which unfortunately the last time these two teams played just a couple of years ago, we were way over, 38-35. The only Super Bowl in history where both teams scored more than 35 points. Joe is on the Eagles, and it'll be fun because I am not. I'm on the Kansas City Chiefs. I was on the Eagles 2 years ago, took the L. I'm on the Chiefs today. I'll give you a score. 27-23 is where I'm at. So I think it's slightly over. I think you can absolutely justify a way that both teams win this game. I like the coaching matchup. Obviously, the QB matchup goes to the Chiefs, but this Philly team has a lot to deal with. Saquon and that offensive line. Their defensive line, Joe, might have an opportunity to make things difficult offensively for the Chiefs as well.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to, Mike. That front four, they don't blitz a lot with Vic Fangio. That's not what they do. Why? Because, well, they can get to your quarterback with that front four. And that front four with Jalen Carter is going to have to be very, very good tonight. Chiefs don't have a running game. The Chiefs are going to use the short passing game to supplement the running game. Kareem Hunt, no offense to him, but Isaiah Pacheco being hurt all year really kind of forced them to pivot with the offense. So I do think that there is that front four in the trenches up against that offensive line of Kansas City. That's where this game is going to be won for the defense of the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think the Chiefs are going to have to force Philly into more third and mediums, third and longs in order for this to be more difficult for them. Force Philly to throw. If Jalen Hurts beats you, at least you didn't play around with Saquon Barkley for the entirety of the game. So we have big boards for a big game. They showed Joe's best bets. We can flash them up there on the screen before we go to break. We can talk about mine after. We got Travis Kelce. I like his over. I think Pacheco actually gets more touches than people are anticipating in this game. Noah Gray, if you want a little bit of a wild card pick. I think the tight ends work a lot for the Chiefs today. We're going to work a lot for the next 4 hours with you right here on SportsGrid. The big game coming up next. Kickoff right upon us.
best dressed guy, let me tell you, next to me in terms of Radio Row. I want to get your thoughts quickly on the game, Philly and KC. How do you see it playing out?
Obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, who just finds a way to win. Then you got on the other side of the table an alien, and Barkley. I mean, he's had an incredible year.
Right.
I think whoever has the balls last is going to win the football game.
Only on SportsGrid.
I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait until you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe's.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Back on the grid, Mike and Joe here with you for the start of the big game coming up in just a few minutes. Joe, in the past 25 seasons, including this Super Bowl, only 3 teams have appeared in the Super Bowl 4 or more times, and 2 of them are facing off today. So it says a lot, not just about their recent success, but their success this century. The Patriots, the Chiefs, and the Eagles, the only teams to appear in 4 or more Super Bowls this century. So a lot of experience. Obviously, there's different groups between ironically, Andy Reid, just to give a sense, folks, of where his place in football history is now. He has now coached more playoff games than any other coach in the Super Bowl era. Today is his 45th playoff game, and he is the winningest head coach in the history of the Kansas City Chiefs and the winningest head coach in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Andy Reid, a lot of experience, Joe. I think that is a huge factor today, and it is not to denigrate Nick Sirianni in any way. It's just that Andy Reid has built a resume that compares with some of the greatest coaches in the history of the game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no doubt it is, Canton is coming whenever Andy Reid decides to hang it up here. And I'm sure he's not going to be finished for a while. We know it's a quarterback league. You have to have a quarterback, which is the one thing in his tenure with Philly that kind of escaped him. No offense, Donovan McNabb, but that was the one thing that unfortunately escaped him when he went to Kansas City, made the decision and convinced the front office that we needed Patrick Mahomes, and the rest, as they say, is history, because they did give up a lot to go get him, moved up to get him when nobody else was taking him, and voila. So Andy Reid really has structured this team and built this team from a particular stand-up that they can go and win big games. Close games, Mike. That's the key here. He's got these guys believing they can win if they have a chance with Mahomes. The 13 seconds in Buffalo a couple of years ago. This is a team that if you're going to beat them, they're not going to rarely beat themselves. It's going to have to be, you're going to have to squash them and make it so I don't care when you get the ball back with 2 minutes left. You're not going to have enough time to win this game.
Yeah, so obviously when you're analyzing a game like this and a game that we expect to be pretty tight, both teams these are the 2 best teams in the league from beginning to end of the season. There was no mid-season swoon of any kind. I think both teams struggled to put their opponents away, but we're talking about a team that's 17-2, the Chiefs. They've won not just the 17-2, but let me pull up the other number here. So 17-2, they also won their last 6 games of the season last year. They won 7 of 8 last year. The one loss that they had at the end of the year, they gave up against Denver. They just mailed that one in. So you're talking about a team that's won 24 of their last 26 games overall. But it's not always with style points. They need a blocked field goal. They win by 2. They won back-to-back games 19-17. Philly, on the flip side, dominant at times in the run game. But, Joe, we even saw against the Rams, a team in this playoffs just a few weeks ago. They dominated them, but it came down to the last play of the game. Matt Stafford had an opportunity to beat them. So Philly does not always put teams away. I feel like against this Kansas City Chiefs team, if you're mapping it out, Philly has to have a more comfortable win here, a 10-point win.
And again, I think that's where experience comes into play here, Mick. We're talking just a couple of short years ago, your quarterback, your coach, and a number of other players on that team have been in this spot against this quarterback and this coach and this team and Spags, and they know what to expect. And I think the reason they're here is because they put up some really gaudy numbers, too, from about week 4 or 5 on here, Philadelphia. They kind of ran through their competition, although they didn't win nearly as many one-score games and close games as Kansas City did, but they certainly seem to have won more in dominant fashion. We're talking about a Kansas City team that couldn't score 30 points in any one of their wins, Mike.
That's right. Yeah, the first time they scored over 30 points was against the Bills in the AFC Championship game. So we have the coin toss has occurred. The Chiefs have decided to defer, and Philly is going to. We'll get it sorted here in a second.
Philly's receiving.
So Philly's going to take the ball.
Yep.
So
Tails.
Tails was the call of the coin. So for those of you that bet on the big game coin toss, minus 104. The coin toss was tails. So if you're a tails bettor, you win. All right, let's get our boards set up for everybody. We'll run through Joe's best bets first. He's got a bunch for you. And then I'll rattle them off as well. Guys, if we could throw that graphic up so everybody gets a chance to see some of Joe's bets. But why don't you start off? Obviously, you like Philly in the game.
Yeah, no, I liked Philly in the game and really built a lot of the props around that outcome here. I did, of course, because I like Philly to win the game and because Kansas City in this spot doesn't tend to go into the break, Mike, winning anything. They're usually trailing. So I took the double result of Philadelphia winning first half and Philadelphia winning the full game. I think that's not a bad way to look at this. And then as you can see, I do think that Harrison Butker is going to have a big game here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Why? Because even though Vic Fangio defenses have not had great results from winning or losing games against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, yeah, that had a lot to do with the fact of the quarterback play and who Vic Fangio had playing offense for those teams. But defensively, nobody has given Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid more fits in the red zone than Vic Fangio defense. And I don't think Andy Reid is going to forego an opportunity to put with Butker 3 points on the board in order to try to go for it on 4th and 4 or 4th and 3. I think Butker is going to be instrumental in Kansas City, putting up as many points as often as they can. 7.5 total points for Butker. I also think both teams are going to have a situation in which they both kick field goals of over 33.5 yards. And, of course, with the Super Bowls always ending up, Mike, at least the last 3 by 3 points.
Yeah.
Why not? At plus 350, yes. The game will be decided by exactly 3 points. That may kill me because I like Philadelphia, and I tend to believe that if Philly wins, they're going to win this thing going away. But Kansas City, nonetheless, I think always wins these close ones, and it's usually by 3 points.
Yeah. And, yeah, so 25-22 last year, 38-35 a couple of years ago, and then they beat the Niners. They beat the Niners kind of going away at the end of that game a few years ago. 31-20, I believe, was the final there. But in all 3 victories, in these Super Bowl victories, the last 3 times out, they have trailed by 10 points in all of those games.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the bets Joe had up there was, will the game be tied after 0-0? He likes it to be yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting one as well. So you throw mine up there. We got KC money line, KC Chiefs minus 1.5 over the total of 48.5. I have an exact score bet there, KC 27-23. I was lucky enough to nail the exact score of the Rams-Bengals Super Bowl. That paid 100-1, so will this one. I try to hedge off of that a little bit. I also have a 28-24 exact score there, so I'll split it up a little bit. I have Leo Chenal over 2.5 tackles and assists and a few more for you. Joe hedges a little bit with the game the game to be a 3-point deficit. I do as well, because I think Philly is going to have some success. Obviously, if I think they're going to score over 20 points, nobody's getting shut down here. Hurts 2+ touchdowns. That was 6-1 earlier in the week. It's come down to 5-1. I don't know what you can get it at right now, but Hurts scored 3 rushing touchdowns, not just last week, but in the last time these two played in the Super Bowl. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. Obviously, the tush push, a big part of it. Joe and I both like Harrison Butker. I like him over field goal attempts over 1.5, over made field goals 1.5. Pacheco, I think I'm against the grain on this one, Joe. I like Pacheco over the touches 5.5 and over 21.5 rushing yards. I think that the Chiefs have to play ball control, and I think they're going to do it with Kelsey and Noah Gray, who I both have over 16.5 and 11.5 respectively. But I think that they will mix it up with Kareem Hunt, who you said was sort of forced into that role. Yep. They used Pacheco a ton last year and in the previous Super Bowl run. I think he gets the requisite number of touches today in order to be successful. When we come back, the game will be going, and Joe and I will sit there and start firing off live lines to you right here on the Grid.
Even the great Nick Saban had to put his team together to do it his way. We know Coach Ryan's coming in to come run the offense, who was his right-hand man, a good friend of his at UW. And, now he's coming in. Everything is going the way we want this thing to be. Coach DeBoer is a great recruiter. He's a great father of players. He's a great leader of men. He's going to do great.
Only on SportsGrid.
But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
All right, we are live, as is the game, so excited to get going. Philly receives, and in the first couple of plays, we have a Saquon Barkley run and a Jalen Hurts rolling out to complete the pass to Devontae Smith. So we're tied at 0, obviously, with just a minute and a half into the game, but we'll keep you tracked on live lines. It's what we do here. It's what Joe and I do every Sunday, is to try to put you in a better position as the game plays along to find you better angles on props, on the line, on the total itself. Obviously focused on one game, Joe. Yep. There's going to be a ton of action and money coming in on these bets as the lines change.
Yeah, no, it's and they will come quickly as well, as they will have their first third down opportunity coming up here to Chiefs defense to get off the field. But another one of the bets that I liked a lot, Mike, this week was the amount of third down conversions and fourth down conversions for Philadelphia, simply because they are dedicated to the run. So they are going to run the ball. They are going to find themselves on a lot of third downs. They're going to find themselves with an opportunity to go 4th and short a bunch of times. Those numbers were reasonable. I believe 5.5 third down conversions.
Yeah.
And I believe it was 1.5 4th down conversions as well. I think they're going to have plenty of third downs here, because they're dedicated to the run. That's what they're going to do. Kansas City's defense knows it. The question is, can they stop them? And we're 3rd and 11 is what they're looking at there, Mike.
Yeah, and a huge play, the first big play of the game for Hurts. He picks up just over 9 yards on a 3rd and 11.
Yep.
And guess
what?
4th down
there
at
it is.
midfield.
There it is.
Philly is not going to be shy about it.
Nope.
So Kansas City successful in forcing a 3rd and long, but can't stop Jalen Hurts with his legs. And it leads to
A.J. Brown, I think.
Yeah, that's an A.J. Brown catch down the field.
Yep.
So, folks,
there is a flag,
moving quickly. Philly across midfield picks up their first 4th down conversion of the game. Is that right, Joe?
No, it's a holding. They're bringing it back. Yeah, that's unfortunate for them, though. But I got to tell you, I love the play call. I love the play call from getting it to midfield, going ahead and wasting no time in trying to dictate the pace, and push this team around. And unfortunately, I'm guessing it was a hold somewhere on the offensive line, or I'm not sure if Brown actually pushed off or anything along those lines. But unfortunately, it is coming back. So our first punt of the game looks like it's coming. Yeah.
Pass interference on A.J. Brown. Right in front of the official. He doesn't like the call. Obviously, he's never going to like that call. But on a 4th and 2, that's a pretty aggressive call. I really don't mind them being aggressive like that. I think you and I talked a lot.
I think that was a terrible call.
He's got his hand on his face mask.
Yeah, but he wasn't catching him anyway, McDuffie.
Yeah, if he doesn't put his hands on him there, he probably catches it anyway.
Yeah,
but,
that's what I'm thinking.
All right, so
that's a ticky-tack, though, no?
Generous call for the Chiefs, I would say, early,
which
is what everybody wants to hear.
Wow.
Is that the Chiefs are getting a generous call early on, and so pushes it all the way back to the 40-yard line, 4th and 12, and Braden Mann punting for Philly. Why would you fair catch it?
I
he didn't.
No idea. No, he didn't.
Okay.
But again,
all right, we're catching punts
out.
inside the 10 and returning them. Yep. So here we go. All right, off and running in this game. I'll get you a live line right now, just so we're all playing along at home. And for those of you that are tuning into this show for the first time, this is what Joe and I do. We're looking for the best angles we can find you live as these things change. Obviously, during the course of the year, Joe, we're sometimes looking at 8, 9, or 10 games in the slate. Here, it's much more concentrated on what we're looking at. But with 11 minutes left in the first quarter, the Chiefs are going to get an opportunity to grab the ball. This is some stats here on the Chiefs. Their first half scoring, on average, 12.9 points per game. Their first half scoring of their opponents, 9.7. Second half scoring for them, 9.9 points per game, and their opponents, 9.9. Their opponents, 9.7. So the Chiefs allow to their opponents 9.7 points per game in the first half and the second half, slightly outscoring them in the second half. So it begs the question, do the Chiefs, unlike their previous 3 Super Bowl appearances, need to get out to a lead at halftime, considering how poor they've played in the third quarter of games this year?
Let me just say, and those of you that had Dunkin' Donuts as the first first commercial break with Bill Belichick and Ben Affleck, my goodness, I couldn't hear a word that they were saying, but it looked absolutely impressive. And by the way, was that Tom Cruise they dug up to do the intro? Because Tom's had some work.
He has.
Yeah,
he has.
Tom's had a little bit of work. But the Chiefs have to and want to try to play from in front. It's something they've had trouble doing all year long. Goes back, Mike, like we talked about in these big games, where they seem to be much more comfortable coming from behind here. But, hey, listen, great attempt. I mean, you got to love the attitude of Philadelphia getting into a 4th and short at midfield and deciding, you know what? We're not going to give it to the best running back in football who's had the greatest year all year. We're going to take a shot with A.J. Brown down the field. I think it sends a message to Spags. I think it sends a message out there to the players that, they're going for broke here. They trust their receivers as much as they trust Saquon Barkley. And you know what? I didn't hate the play early on in the game, but now listen, and we talked about it.
Yeah.
Eagles are going to win this game based upon what they do defensively and how they limit Mahomes.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what's going to happen. So, now you won the field position here. You're inside the 10-yard line. Go ahead, defense. Let's see what you got.
This is how Vic Fangio defenses play.
Yep.
He has no problem pinning somebody at the 11-yard line and seeing if they can engineer a 91-yard touchdown drive. The problem for Fangio, in my estimation, the reason I picked the Chiefs is I think he's perfectly comfortable operating like this, are the Chiefs.
Yep.
They will have a 91-yard touchdown drive. They'll use ball control passing. They'll just mix in some runs, and we'll see exactly what they do. Eagles really unhappy with the A.J. Brown call.
Yeah.
I think if his hand isn't on his face mask, there's no call at all. If he just held him off, maybe on the jersey. But that was against McDuffie.
Yep.
Geez, of course. Get Juju Smith-Schuster on the first catch of the game for the
had
Chiefs.
him. I had him over. I thought his numbers were kind of low. He just went for, 60, 70 yards in a game?
Yeah, he had a huge, 34-yard play in the last game.
He trusts him.
All right, so Juju, right out of the gate, just like we said from the beginning of the show. More with Mike and Joe right after this. Cracking the ball.
Let's talk about Philly and Kansas City. They're here again 2 out of the last 3 years. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'm a big Andy Reid fan, and it's hard to go against what he's been able to accomplish. That being said, there's a lot of storylines in this game. You look at Saquon and what he's been able to do this year.
Crazy.
It's wild. But if he's able to do what he's done throughout the playoffs, they'll be hard to beat.
Only on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes. End of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we're back. Punt to start the game here, and Philly is going to take over. Where is they, Joe? Around their own 25-yard line or so.
That's
right. We are scoreless 6 minutes into the game, and if you had a punt parlay to start it off, that might work. I did have Travis Kelce to catch a pass on their first drive, and they did target him, and it was dropped. I think it was thrown behind him, so Mahomes scrambled out of some trouble there, but we started off punt, no change in the line right now, obviously, but Philly will get a second crack at it. Do you think they go run heavy here instead of mixing it up with the pass like they did in the first drive?
Well, we saw the total drop. I mean, we're down to what, 43.5, 44.5 right now. I have the game as a just around a pick 'em or minus a half, depending on who's going to have the ball here. But I think the total is worth keeping an eye on as this game progresses here. I did like the under 24.5 in the first half because I did kind of think it was going to be a little slow go early on, and then we have seen what Philadelphia can do in the second half once adjustments are made here. And, of course, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, they love playing from behind. And even though we had a whole lot of scoring last time these two teams played, I didn't think we were going to get a net. Both of these teams are built completely differently than what we saw a couple of years ago.
Absolutely.
Totally differently.
Absolutely. Especially, I think there was sort of as the Chiefs transitioned after winning that Super Bowl, the Chiefs transitioned into becoming a much more defensive-oriented team.
Correct.
So I think sometimes, and I've said this to Joe, probably so much he's sick of it, hearing it every Sunday, Patrick Mahomes' presence on the Chiefs distracts most people from how good their defense is. I think that's a reality. They are a defensive-minded football team. They do not have explosive playmakers all over the field. Xavier Worthy is a really interesting, dynamic rookie. Travis Kelce is one of the greatest tight ends of all time. But the rest of the pass catchers, and they're not even targeting Worthy downfield. In fact, the Chiefs are one of the top, I think, bottom 3 or bottom 5 worst teams in downfield passing, means 20 yards or more. They are not going for bombs like they used to with Tyreek Hill, who saved their bacon in the first Niners Super Bowl. Those plays aren't really happening for the Chiefs. They are comfortable with the ball control passing attack. We'll see. Obviously, as Joe said, that total has come down to 43.5. I think it's worth a look right now. We can't presume that these teams are going to keep punting. I don't think it's going to be under 44. I had it over 48.5, although right around that number. I thought it was a pretty sharp number. In fact, last year, Joe, we had a 25-22 game on a total of 47.5, so the books pretty much nailed it from the beginning. But here we are, Philly taking over on their second drive of the game.
I will say this, Mike. Just watching both defenses are flying around the field right now. And interestingly enough, I guess maybe we shouldn't be shocked here, but did you see a handoff anywhere in that sequence inside 10-yard line there for Kansas City?
Nope.
I'm pretty sure it was all passing plays. So that is what you're going to get here with Kareem Hunt and a 60% Pacheco. I am not going to believe an extra week helped him become healthy enough to do anything more than basically back up Hunt, who's going to be a short yardage guy anyway. They are clearly, I think, going to have to do this off of the arm of Pat Mahomes. And those props are looking pretty good the way this first thing started off, this first drive.
No doubt. If you've trailed my Leo Chenal over 2.5 tackles and assists, he got one there for you. So just a couple more to go as he comes off the field. He's not always in their base defense. That's generally Nick Bolton. And
where's Dallas Goedert been, by the way?
Yeah, there you go, buddy.
Oh, okay.
There
it is. There you go.
We got Dallas Goedert for a first down. Nice, easy play for Philly, pitch and catch. If Jalen Hurts can get a lot of throws like that throughout the day today, they're going to be in pretty good shape. You saw the Chiefs sell out and stop Barkley on first down, and then on second and long, they hit Goddard pretty easily. Hurts does not like to, and they do not make him as an offense throw in between the numbers all that much, Joe. A lot of stuff on crossers like you saw there with Goddard. And you see they're selling out on Barkley. It's what they need to do. They're trying to stop him as much as they can on first and second down.
But you know what? They're sticking with it, Philadelphia, and I love the mix because they're not going to be one-dimensional. I still think Barkley's going to get his 20, what was his number, 20 and a half carries, 21 and a half.
Yeah.
Still think he's going to get those, but they are going to mix it up. It's not just going to be the Barkley show today.
Yeah, I was with the Barkley over on rush attempts, too, if you're backing Philly. I don't think there's any – they're not going to get cute about it. But as Joe said, I think the manner in which they can mix it up says a lot about the talent of their team. We don't even talk about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith all that much, and they're one of the most talented wide receiving duos in the entire league. Joe and I will be back with more on the Super Bowl after this.